Good afternoon. BNI Victory is now addressing Mr. Hanuman Tripathi, co-founder and group managing director of Infrasoft Technologies. Sir, you will be a good afternoon. So you will be a big inspiration to us. We are from BNI Victory. We are about 42 members, and we would like to know from you how we can scale up our business and certain other ideas. So, can we start?
Sure.
Okay. Aviva Global Connect Award from Economic Times, International Stevie Award, Channel World Premier 100 Awards. Are awards a habit for you, a dream for you, or a byproduct?
Ideally, I should say byproduct, but I'll be honest, they are dreams. The fact is that a organization which is trying to vertically scale up should benchmark itself at all points of time. I find benchmarking Infrasoft Tech based on these awards far more useful than benchmarking otherwise. Awards make sure that you are competing in an open world with all your competition, all your customers, and everybody recognizing your efforts. If you get that recognition, it motivates your people, it motivates your own self to do something better again and again. So I find awards as a good benchmark for you to excel and go to the next level once you have achieved what you want to achieve at one level. So they are more of my dream at all points of time.
So, is there any stress building up?
No, not really. But what happens is that it's like a race, or it's like any kind of a competition. It thrills you. You want to present yourself in the best possible form, and that shows a lot of your passion. It shows a lot of your competency to deliver. It also shows what best the best what the organization has done has to come out in form of a document, in form of a video, in terms of interviews and so on and so forth. All this actually probably makes the organization far more competitive. It's not stress. Probably it's probably it's a way of having to excel.
It's a way of life.
Yeah,
Competition is a way of life.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. We have chosen our profession in a manner that we cannot live without competition. We have to live with the competition at all points of time. We don't have that. We don't have the luxury of not having competition around.
We can't be complacent. At any
No, we
point.
can't. And in fact, awards make sure that you can never be complacent, because it tells you that you can't really disown the success which you have created in past, and you have to excel from there onwards. So that's good for us.
The entire team is geared up for the competition?
Yes, always. There are some people who drive it, but having to drive it is never a process by itself in an island. It's driven by a large. The results are actually shown by a larger team. It's only represented by a small team.
Okay.
And that small team sets out larger objectives. Yes, larger objectives, how they are to be performed, and so on and so forth, which is executed by a larger team. So obviously the entire organization gets involved in some or other way.
Ownership as well as the joy of achievement, both.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like one example I like to take, if any of our offices are going to be visited by an international customer or a large customer, does the office not get geared up? Office gets geared up in terms of people coming more groomed on that day, or probably people are aware that there could be random interviews, so they are more brushed up and ready to meet a customer. There are more people who are presenting to the client that day than just few people who ordinarily do that. So it's the same situation when it comes to awards or any kind of a benchmarking exercise. Indirectly, the entire organization actually gets involved.
Amazing, amazing. Now, yes, one part of it is awards, but there has to have probably an inspiration in your life that has motivated you to come this far. What is it? Who or what?
I have actually tried sometimes, or in fact at all points of time, to say, who is your inspiration? I feel my inspiration are not a person. Yeah, my inspiration has never been a person, or my inspiration are never a set of people. I would say a certain business leader or a national leader or a spiritual leader or anybody else as a person being my inspiration. Although I respect all my previous bosses extremely well, I respect business leaders of this country who have created organizations which are self-sustaining, and they have been running it for hundreds of years. I personally feel I always got inspired, and I maintain that even today and probably in future, by organizations that were created as large institutions. And those institutions ran over the centuries, and they built what is called as an sustainable economic model that built the country's economy, that created large scale employment, that created good value system. It created culture of how business has to be conducted and how India has to become competitive in an international platform. And there are several names.
Yes.
I worked in a Tata organization for 10 years or 9 years. I would say that's a great inspiration for me. Or when we started Infrasoft Tech, we used to, on a lighter vein, we used to say we would like to emulate how ITC got built in the country, or how Levers got built into the country, or L&T got built into the company. Those are the organizations to emulate, because if you see what they have delivered, not only as business results, but also as a result of corporate governance, results in the space of corporate governance, or public good, or employment, or sustenance in every which way. I think they have done wonders. And in today's businesses, which are created on a belief that you're going to start not knowing how long the business is going to go on, I think that was a great model. 300 years back or 200 years back, somebody created a company believing that they are going to run it for next 2 years, 200 years or 300 years. That's fantastic. So I would say that my role models are those institutions which have created centuries worth of value in this country.
Amazing.
And they have created, they are the strong pillars of Indian economy.
Yes.
Or why just Indian economy? Businesses which are global pillars of global economy. So those are my inspiration. And I would always like to see at Infrasoft Tech or any other business in which I have some involvement or activity, they should have a very long lasting sustainability in terms of its impact on its customers, economy as a whole, the social environment we operate in, on its people, shareholders, everybody.
Probably you're thinking of organizations which had a vision which would impact the whole of humanity rather than the immediate stakeholders.
Absolutely, yes.
When someone wants to scale a business, now that you were talking about how several organizations have set up businesses not thinking of the immediate impact, but how they would build sustainable business for the entire economy.
Yeah.
What would be your advice to people who want to scale up their business about the most important considerations that they should have?
Considerations means pitfalls. Considerations means
The precautions.
precautions.
That they need to take.
Okay. Oh, there are several. Scalability. If I want to answer it simply, I would say scalability happens because somebody is very passionate about it, right? A founder or the leader in the organization or set of management team want to scale up an organization. When they want to scale up organizations, a lot of time it happens that the reason that has caused that ambition becomes a pitfall.
Absolutely, it could be a stumbling block.
Absolutely, and those are you would see that phrase bursting on the seam is because of the scaling up issue.
Yes.
Because something starts becoming larger and it starts bursting on the seam. Bursting on the seam essentially is an expression of saying that you're not performing your values or delivering your values or performing your duties as well as what you are doing earlier. So first and the foremost is that, are you going to continue to serve your customers in the same manner, same in the same with the same closeness and with the same level of quality as you are continuing to do in past? So you have to first preserve that as a preserve that. So once you plan scale up, you have to see that your current relationships don't get affected for the reason of expansion or growth. So number one. Number two, I would say that in the process of having to scale up, you need to make very large scale commitments, and those commitments can create a stretch on your finance. It can create a stretch on your HR resources. It can create a absolute crunch on your quality. There could be shortage of payments, there could be shortage of deliveries, there could be, you can go completely off the mark in what you commit and what you will deliver in terms of your delivery schedules, in terms of your values which you are supposed to deliver in a contract. Right. So one has to probably look at what can go wrong in your scaling up, and therefore the commitments which you make cannot be as ambitious as your ambition of having to scale up is. That means we may decide to scale up 100%, but the commitments which we should make in terms of delivery schedules or in terms of HR implementation or quality and so on and so forth should always be little scaled down, so that we are able to focus, we are able to utilize the resources in the most optimal or little stretched out manner to achieve those expansions. And we should also always keep an eye over these aspects not going out of hand. Yeah? And finance is the first one which people generally go burst very, very quickly in an expansion mode, and they have not tied that up very well.
Okay. If those loose ends are there, then the systems go wrong.
Systems can go wrong extremely bad. How it can go wrong is that if you have enough money but you have not planned your people orientation well, or you have not planned your deliveries well, then your money can get wasted and you may not achieve the expansion. But if you may have other things but not the money, the fact is that you may go bust on the seam in terms of finances itself. If your people strategy is not right, if you have not planned it well in advance and you have not decided how you are going to utilize your extra manpower, current manpower in a expanded manner to achieve the initial stage of growth and then fund the new manpower, or how do you reskill your people to meet the growth of expansion, then what can happen is that you may land up with so much of extra HR costs which may not be useful for you if your expansion plans are not met. So yes, these 3 or 4 areas, if they are not planned well, any one of the things going wrong can cause impact on the other.
You have 4 legs or 3 legs on a tripod and one is not of size, and the whole tripod goes up.
Absolutely.
We were talking about passion, startups, and those who want to scale up. Right? So, what has been driving your passion?
I don't know what is the right answer, because I don't think anything can drive passion. Passion is something which drives everything else. So passion is like how you breathe, or how you sleep, or how you eat. Passion is one of those critical factors of life, these cannot probably be taught, or passion cannot be taught. It cannot be outsourced. I cannot say I can give my passion to you, or you can give your passion to me, to be able to work the same way as you work, or the same way as you dream can I dream. No. So I genuinely feel that, like you have your basic tenets of in you, that some people study well, read well, some people are better sportsmen, some people are very hardworking, some people are very innovative, some people are passionate. Right? So it's one of the genetic, or that's a very strong something which is in your DNA. I wouldn't say genetic, but it's in your DNA. It's in your blood that that it will drive you to a certain direction. Now, I would say passion is there in everybody, and a passion is there even in animals, and passion is there in every human being, according to me. it's that result orientation behind that passion that causes a person to work harder towards a certain dream, and that makes passion actually come in forefront.
Right.
So
And
people
also
who
probably
don't
you have to discover your passion, where it
yes, we
lies.
have to discover that. And according to me, if I see happy people, if I see happy customers, if I see a extreme economic activity, that means a profitable business, creating good governance model, being able to create an organization which is socially relevant while
That
being very
builds your passion.
profitable, it actually drives me to the next goal much faster than uh, just probably making money or just probably being an NGO by itself or something.
Okay.
So for me, a combination of a, a business activity that makes customers extremely happy, if I get a lot of customer satisfaction, if I see lot of people satisfaction, people, the teams who are working with me, if the company is growing and is able to succeed in its economic or budgetary plans, and more so if you are able to be socially relevant. If all this happens together, I feel my passion gets fueled for doing something more and better.
So if you see somebody else achieving it, then your passion is fueled. You see
I,
that
I am
happening?
pretty competitive,
Yes.
and I am extremely, I get very driven by the fact if I see success all around me, whether from competition or from us,
within.
yeah, of course from within. But I can also say that any amount of failures in and around us has not reduced my passion, and I have also tried to see that we are able to push this as a message very clearly to everyone that failures should not cause somebody's passion or objectivity to go down or go away from the plan. Course correction is okay,
Yes.
but having to get disheartened and therefore reduction in passion for something is not the answer for us, and not for me definitely.
Excellent. Very nice. What are the few steps that you would, as a CEO, take at the time of recession to to turn around your economy in the company? You find that, okay, there is a...
In our business, in last 18 years, um, we have seen 3 recessions, and global recessions. And one we saw in very infant stage, where we would have probably been counted as an infant mortality case, would have been shut down. But, and you know, one of the ads which we released way back in, I won't name the period, it actually said that we survived Exodus, in the sense it was at the time when global .com companies were shutting down, and companies which were in a 10-12 crore kind of a size as we were at that point of time, they had massive threat. And so I would say that there are 2 things which one has to immediately do. One is that you have to cling on to your clients, because you know customers also get mostly affected during recession. Whether if you are a customer to somebody or your own customers, or because the overall economic process gets affected or economy gets affected, your customers get affected. So you have to cling on to your clients and know that the clients can make a choice and will remove suppliers who are delivering lesser value. So you have to enhance your value to the customer, need not be cost, but you are delivering higher value. So your passion towards your customer services, what you are delivering as a net result of the money which you are getting from the client in terms of your contract value, you have to deliver that at a much higher value in recession time than in normal course, in good times. Okay. In business as usual, contracts work. In recession, value works in a very clear terms. Second thing is, which is very critical, and people find it very phony when I say this in many forums, is that you have to actually step up investment on marketing and sales in recession. And if you do not step that up, supposing you say that during recession my budgetary provision has come down by 10%, that means my cost has to go down by 10%. No matter what, you have to provision a higher marketing cost in that controlled, in that curtailed budget, in order to not only survive this recession, but also to see that when the recession is also like a like a cyclic course. So at the end of recession, a good time will also come. At that time, if you are not there,
Right.
there is nothing for you.
Yes.
So if you invest in marketing and sales today during the recession time, you will be the beneficiary when the uptime and the up cycles are coming in. And most importantly, if you are investing in sales and marketing today in recession time, the customers will see you more often. People will see you more often. The people who are working with you will have more faith in you, that you have optimism towards what is happening. You know your direction and you know what you are going to deliver. So two things, as I said. One, that you have to deliver higher value to the clients during recession. Come what may, you have to innovate there. And second, that you have to invest in marketing and sales. And third thing, which you didn't ask me for the third thing, but according to me, you have to keep your team together. You have to speak, continuously send out messages that the times may be bad, but we are doing well. We are doing well because we know what we are doing and
Morale
what
has
we
to
are
be
delivering.
high.
Yes,
Morale has to be
because if morale is not high, gossips and grapevine is the highest during recession time.
Absolutely.
People that hear that in the public transport, in the cafes, in the pubs, in their families,
Right.
and the general morale is very low. So you have to keep your team together.
So is the leader expected to be more visible and to be around the team more often?
Yes, absolutely. He or she should be speaking more than in usual case.
If you were to address three competencies that a leader must have, what would those be?
I would say people orientation. That always is the most critical part. You have to have absolute people orientation. If you don't have people orientation, you will not have customer orientation also, because customer are also people, incidentally. Beyond the garb of an organization brand name, there are people on both sides, on your organization side and on your customer organization side. You have to empathize and you have to relate to both. So I would say customer orientation and people orientation, very, very critical, and both are related to people orientation according to me. Second thing, which is very, very critical for any leader, and I would say that beyond people orientation, there cannot be any other second. This is the second and the most important aspect of life, and that is being courageous. Your ability to take decisions firmly, and have courage to take risks. Not being foolhardy, but at times being even foolhardy. But I am saying being courageous to take little giant leap. Go out of your comfort zones and take on the competition, take on new markets, take on innovation. You know, that ability to take courageous decisions is very, very critical. So that is second most. Third, according to me, could be various things. Knowledge of the business in the first place, your own depth of knowledge. I would say you have to be a PhD or a doctor in your own subject. Without that, you can't be real. Sometimes people say that a CEO has to be a journalist. Yes, but I don't think an entrepreneurial CEO or an entrepreneurial founder can be a journalist. He has to know this, or she has to know this subject well.
Very well.
Very, very well. Otherwise, the customers or people will not have faith in you. They don't like to see a journalist sitting there. And in the end, the vision or mission is not everything. Execution is everything. The God lies in execution. So if you don't know the subject, how do you create execution? So I would say knowledge and depth is very critical there. But at the same time, that can be substituted with so many other things. So if you ask me still three most valuable things, I would still rate people orientation, courage, depth, and innovation. The ability to innovate, have an eye over quality, very important. Because the moment as a CEO or as a business head or as an entrepreneur or as a leader in an organization, you start accepting lack of quality, or you do not drive your people to innovate or do something better, I think you will stay in your own place, simmering and not really boiling and going ahead or taking up bigger heights or actually displacing competition. You have to have these four things together, working together to strive to go ahead faster than what you have planned.
When you talk about leaders, it is they who actually top down the culture of the company is created.
Yeah.
Do you believe that the culture affects the results? How far?
Culture is everything. Culture is actually the gene, it is actually the DNA, it is actually the way of life in true sense, and culture only determines everything. How it determines in families or how it determines in a community or a race, same way culture determines everything in a business or in an organization. So I would say if you look at culture of an organization, how well you keep your accounts, how well you serve your customers, how do you deal with your people, um, what is your attitude towards growth, um, how do you want to serve the nation or community, how do you how do you want to train your next generation, how do you want to create leadership, all of that is a matter of one single thing which is called culture. And if you drive your culture correctly, you would see that uh, compliance, governance, transparency, tax paying, being able to fulfill dreams of your team members, to be able to provide right kind of returns to your shareholders, being tax paying at all points of time, being a good citizen to the nation where you are, uh, and being the darling of the customers by having to deliver the value which you contract for all the time, and look after the clients more than what they expect you to do, all that gets driven extremely well if your culture is correctly placed. If your correct culture is that of shortchanging, then you will shortchange everywhere. And one day you will get shortchanged.
Very well said. If you have to define the culture of Infrasoft, what are the most important values that you will talk about?
We first of all we have very high orientation towards people, very high orientation, and there are several things which are said to be. We are a people partnership organization. We are meritocracy driven organization. We are equal opportunity organization. But I would say we are extremely people oriented organization. We say that all of us, when we started this company, we were not related to each other. We came together and we have stayed together for 18, 20 years, longer than sometimes families survive together. And this culture of staying together and performing together and valuing each other's dream and giving space to every person to grow together is something which is a culture of Infosoft Tech, and that's what translates us into having to be a highly customer centric organization as well. So our customer orientation is our next aspect of our culture, and that's the reason for last 18 years, from 1995 onwards, I'm very proud that we have most of our customers staying back with the company and giving us increasingly higher business, even when the competition around us sometimes has grown tremendously, um, uh, or we had international competition knocking on the door of the customer, getting much lower prices and so on and so forth. But customers have retained Infosoft Tech because of our orientation towards customer, being of a company which delivers more than what you pay them for. And thirdly, we are extremely conscious to the fact that we have to be a profitable organization. We have to be a dividend paying organization so that shareholders feel proud of Infosoft Tech at all points of time. And we are seen as a strong and a matured company. So we do not compromise on issues of cash flows, profitability and dividend paying track record of the organization, because we want to be known as a strong competitive company. Our native baseline is that we will always be best in class, and we will grow to the upper limit of that class and change our class itself, so that next time we go to the next better level at all points of time. So that's the culture of the organization. We are extremely competitive within our own means.
Thank you very much for sharing your insights. I'm sure that BNI Victory has gained a lot of moments that they can cherish, a lot of ideas that they can learn from, and we are going to scale new heights because the inspiration that you've given us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I hope this time was useful for you and useful for anybody who's interacting on this platform.
It has been a pleasure and it is an honor.
Thank you very much. Thank you.